Welcome back to Unbreakable, Unapologetic, and Unstoppable. I'm Bonita Payton, your host, and today's episode is for the ones who keep going when life gives you every reason to give up. There's a certain kind of pain that doesn't announce itself. You smile, you show up, you pour out. But when the house is quiet and the phone is dry and it's just you and the weight that no one sees, let's start there. Let's talk about the days you cry in your car, the moments you sit on the side of the bed wondering, God, do you see me? The exhaustion that hits before your feet even hit the floor in the morning. I know I'm not the only one that this happens to. I know I'm not the only one that cry in the dark. I know I'm not the only one that sits and thinks sometimes, God, why me? God, I do everything I can. Why me? God, what am I gonna do today? How am I gonna get through this day? God, I can't let my husband see me upset. God, I can't let my kids see me cry. And you do everything before you walk out your bedroom door. You get up, you go in the bathroom, you comb your hair, you put on your makeup, and you put on that smile to cover up the pain. Let's be real. I'm not the only one. I know that there's other people out there just like me. That no matter what is going on and how bad things are, you gotta act like everything is awesome. You gotta put that smile on. You gotta go into work. You're sitting there at work and you're looking around and you're like, I'm busting my butt. But I know when I get this check on Friday, it's not even going to pay all my bills. Let that resonate right there. You put in 40 hours this week. And at the end of 40 hours, after they take the tax money out, and they take the insurance money out, and you get your paycheck, you're still sitting there trying to figure out, how am I going to buy grocery, put clothes on my kids' back? How am I going to put gas in the car? How am I going to pay the light bill, the gas bill, and the phone bill, plus my rent? We're just starting. What about the silent hustle that we go through? This is the part where you pour into the ones who work nonstop, not for praise, but for survival. You hustle not because it's trendy, but because you don't have the luxury not to. I want to speak to the woman out there that's working 2 or 3 jobs, trying to build a business while parenting alone. I want to talk to the man who clocks into his job that he hates because purpose doesn't pay the bills yet. Why don't you slow down, they ask. And you just smile thinking, because if I slow down, everything crashes. You're not addicted to work. You're addicted and committed to freedom. You're not obsessed with success. You're just trying to break the generational cycle. It's like growing up, I watched my mom. My mom was a stay-at-home mom when I was growing up. She worked with my older siblings, but most of the time, by the time I was 5 or 6, my mom was a stay-at-home mom. And I watched my mom struggle. My dad had a good job. My dad got retirement. My dad worked at General Motors. And my mom just had to depend on my dad. and I said, I don't want to do that. But what I ended up taking on was hustling through my grief, hustling through my sickness, hustling through my loss. And the world still just expected me to go on. I remember when my dad died, I was broke. Oh, I was so broken. My dad was my heart. And when my dad closed his eyes, all I knew to do was to go back to Houston and go back to work. Throw myself into work because it was going to make me feel better. The funny thing is, my supervisor decided to lay me off because she says I wasn't grieving correctly. How the heck can somebody else tell you how to grieve? And the funny thing is, when you're sick and you know you're sick, but you know if you don't get up and go to work, you don't get paid. And people say, you should just stay home if you don't feel good. Well, that's kind of funny too, because if I stay home and I don't have sick pay, that means my check is going to be short, and who's going to pay my bills? I'm just keeping it real because I know I'm not the only one out there that deals with this. Everybody don't have sick pay. Everybody don't have health insurance. And sometimes you just have to hustle through it all. You wake up hustling, you go to sleep hustling. Hell, you're hustling your sleep. Because the whole time you're sleeping, you're wondering what it is that you have to do when you wake up. But sometimes, we're unsupported, but unshaken. What do you do when you look around and everyone you helped is nowhere to be found when you need help? Come on now. How many times have you given your last to someone? And when it comes down to you needing something, they tell you they broke. But yet you see them shopping. But they don't have no money. But they shopping. And then they ask you, do you want to go with them? No, and you don't have no money. Yeah, we just gonna call it what it is. You got friends that call just to hear how bad you doing sometime, with no intentions of helping, even when they can. You realize some folks only check in to collect your pain like gossip. My mom always told me you gotta watch the people who bring a bone, because they definitely gonna carry a bone. So, why are they really calling? Are they calling because they really care? Are they calling because they're really concerned? Are they just calling to see what tea they can get today? I want to speak to the people that's out there, who gave their last to people who vanished when they hit bottom. You know those people, the people that you gave a place to stay when they had nowhere to stay. Those people that you helped them pay their rent when they were being evicted. What about those people that you took everywhere because they didn't have a car, but when your car got totaled out and you didn't have transportation and they had a new car, they were too busy to come help you? I'm just telling it like it is, because here on this show, I say things that you want to say, but you just feel like you can't say. So, sometimes we just have to tell it like it is. Sometimes you just look around and you go, where are all of those friends I had when I had a good job? Where are all of those friends that I had when I was riding around and I was taking people shopping and we were going out to expensive restaurants to eat? Where are those people that won't even bring me McDonald's today? You know, that something off of the dollar menu. You know, it's like, I remember when I was in Cali, I wrote this story in ING Times, and it was called, Will You Still Stay? If I lose everything today, will you stay? A lot of people, we have to look around and we have to ask ourselves that question, because a lot of people come into our lives and they stay in our lives long as we can do something for them. But will they stay if you lose everything today? You know, that chick that you in love with, that dude that is under your feet every time you move. If your new car get repoed and you get kicked out your house and you lose your job and you spend everything in 401k, is that dude gonna stay? Will that dude go to the homeless shelter with you? Will that guy get on the bus with you? Will that dude hustle with you for you guys to get everything back? I'm just asking the question. You know, we gotta, man, there's value. And it's not based on who claps for you. It's not based on who encourages you. Your value is what you feel in yourself. And man, you can't let somebody take your value away. But you know what? We got somebody that never leaves us, that's always in our corner. You know what? I call him God. And he's always there. When it gets quiet and nobody is clapping and nobody is there and things get quiet and there's nobody to talk to, there's a man named God. And he's never leave you. Never. So, you know, I just got to take it here for you today. I really do. Because I think everybody needs it. It's just that we just don't talk about it. Because if we talk about it, people are going to think we weak. People are going to think we soft. People are going to call us a failure. Do you really care what they call you? We live our life so much trying to compare ourselves to the next person. We live our life worrying about what somebody feels about us. But we got to talk about this. When your heart is broken into pieces and no one understands why you even love that person in the first place. When you're scared this time when you come back, will you just make it back? Can you mend your heart? Can you put yourself back together? Man, what about when you go to that doctor and the doctor give you your diagnosis and it's terminal? And you're sitting there all by yourself. And you look around and you get to the car and you don't even know if you want to tell anybody. Why should you? They didn't even care enough to go to the doctor with you. They didn't even care enough to ask if you had a doctor's appointment. But yet here you are, you sitting in the car after the doctor done told you you got 6 months to live. And your brain is going 60 miles an hour while you sitting still. What about when you're thinking about your kids that's going hungry because you don't have a dime in your checking account to feed them? and you're trying to figure out how. When your rent is coming up and you don't even have a job and no way to make money, and you looking at you might become homeless. How you gonna get that stuff out that house? Where you gonna put this stuff that's in the house? Where are you gonna go? Where are your kids gonna go? What are you gonna tell your kids? Man, I know some of you are holding on by a thread. You don't know what to do. You don't know what to think. You don't have anybody to talk to. You don't have anybody to go to. Right now, you in survival mode. Faith mode. The kind that doesn't sound pretty, but it keeps you alive. I just want to walk you through the darkest valley. I've been there. I thought about it. I remember laying in that bed in that hospital in 2000. And the one thing that I had always been able to do my whole life was talk. Breathe on my own. Eat. Go to the bathroom. And here I was, I couldn't do any of that on my own. I looked around, and some days there was nobody in that room with me. And I was scared. And it was a dark day. And don't even think about if you're cold and nobody's there. That fear is like no other fear, I'm telling you. Because you never want to go to sleep, because you're too afraid that if you go to sleep, you might not wake up again. That fear is real. Where you end up with insomnia because you're too afraid to go to sleep because you don't want to die in your sleep. And this might just be the end. Even when it feels like that, God didn't abandon you. He doesn't. When you in that relationship and you gave that relationship your all, and you love that person more than life itself, when that person was the wind beneath your wings, when that person was your heartbeat, when that person was your everything, and it's over, and you trying to pick up the pieces and figure out how to move forward. How do I do this? How do I get through the heartbreak? Yeah, that's at one of the lowest parts of your life right there, when you're trying to get through it. You see, faith doesn't always roar. Sometimes faith whispers. Try again tomorrow. I want to talk to that exhausted warrior. The one that's just too numb to cry, too angry to pray, and too tired to even hope. You've been hurt so bad, you're scared to love again. You're scared to trust. You're scared to let someone get close enough to hurt you again. They call that vulnerability. Who wants to be vulnerable to get hurt again? You're bitter. And you just you just want to protect yourself. You're protecting the scar tissue that you already got. But I want to tell you, you got to rebuild your faith in God and in yourself, even after betrayal and disappointment. You see, it's hard. It's hard, but it's not impossible. Because if you just take the time to sit back and allow God to speak to you and listen, you You can recover. You know, you can heal. Healing might not happen immediately. Healing might be a little slow, but it can happen. You know, I've been there. Man, when I tell you I have been broken into pieces, my heart has been ripped out of my chest. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know what to do. And I had to cry on my own time because I couldn't let my kids see me cry. I couldn't let the people at work see me cry. You know, I had to cry on my lunch break. I had to find a reason to go to the bathroom, and I sat in a stall and I cried silently because I didn't want anybody that came in the bathroom to hear me cry. I went outside away from my family and I just tried to figure it out. But you know, you sit there and go, suck it up, buttercup. You gotta get through this because there's nobody else that can. You gotta keep pushing. You can't give up. You can't quit. You're the breakthrough. You know, you are the breakthrough your bloodline prayed for. You survived what could have killed you. You pushed through the silence. You loved through heartbreak, and you showed up when they counted you out. You know, it's like, you know, I don't know if you remember those weebles that they used to talk about when we was little, when they used to say the weebles wobble, but they don't fall down. You used to punch them and they would go back and they would pop back up. That's what we have to be like, and that's what we become. We become like that weeble, that wobble that didn't fall down. But you can't quit now. You come too far. You're not finished. You're just tired. It's been so many times that I just wanted to quit. I remember when I was young. I want to say my daughter probably was about 2 or 3 years old. And I felt nothing was going right in my life. I remember being in Monroe, Louisiana. And we had this intersection that we called 5 Point off of Louisville and DeSere Street. And I remember driving up to this light, and my thoughts said, you know, if I just run through this light, a car hit me, it'll be immediate, I'll die, and everybody will be so much better off. My daughter won't have to struggle because I'm struggling. And you know, the crazy thing is, I tried the dumb shit. And the car that should have hit me, that took me out, swerved. And I just spin around and the car stopped. And I had to keep driving on because I wasn't dead. You know, that's the crazy thing, you know. And I know I'm not the only one that had those moments in their life when they thought, you know, life would just be better if I wasn't living it. I know I'm not the only one. But you know, we go through this. You know, especially when you're a single parent. One of the hardest things you go through as a single parent is losing your job and not knowing how you're going to pay the rent, how to feed the kids, how to pay the utility bills. And you look at your kids and they're so innocent. They didn't deserve this. They don't deserve this at all. And all you know is, I just gotta make through. I gotta make it through. I gotta push through. I gotta do this. And you put on that cape and you stand in that superwoman pose. Or if you're that dad, you just look around and you go, I don't have a choice. I can't give up and I can't stop and I can't run. True, we do have some parents that run. They walk away and they never turn back, and they leave the other parent there to deal with everything on their own. But you know what? God got your back. God got your back every time. You know? I know sometimes when I go through my worst moments, I sit back sometime, and growing up, I grew up in an old Baptist church called Luton Chapel. It was on the Sears Street. And they used to sing these old hymns in that church. So when I got older, all I knew was that when things got rough and I needed answers, and I needed to make it through, maybe if I turned on the music, I could get there. And it's some of my go-to songs that I definitely go to all the time. You know, like When I Pray by Doe. You know, Doe talks about when I pray. And when I tell you that song hits home, when we talk about it, it's crazy. You know, because when I pray, somebody's got to listen, right? You know, when I pray, you know, she says, you're never too busy for me. Sometimes prayer is the only language I have left, and the beauty, God always speaks back, even through the silence. Sometimes I need encourage yourself. Sometimes you have to encourage yourself in the Lord, because when nobody else is clapping, you have to become your own choir. Speak life, speak power, and speak promise. Lord, and then let me tell you, when the devil really get busy, I have to hear no weapon. Because no weapon formed against me shall prosper. You know, the enemy tried it, but it didn't work. Because what God covers can't be canceled. And then, you know, you're bigger. You're bigger than any mountain I can or cannot see. There's nothing you're facing that God can't overcome. He's not scared of your diagnosis, your debt, nor your depression. And, oh my God, I remember on those days when all I know is that I need you now. Not another second, not another minute. Sometimes it's not a prayer, it's a plead. And sometimes all you can say is, God, I need you. I need you. Oh my God. Where would I go without your hand holding me? I walk through dark places, but I never walk them alone. You know, then I have to backdoor that guys with J. Moss, with good and bad. You love me through my good and my bad. And the kind of God we serve, he doesn't wait for you to get it right. He meets you right in the middle of your mess. But you know, Marvin Sapp told me he saw the best in me. When everybody else around me could only see the worst in me, God saw the best in me. Listen, when people dismiss me, when God discovered me, when they counted me out, He called me up. This is the one right here, the reminder that God's view of you never changes, even when people's opinions do. And Lord have mercy. Hezekiah Walker brings it in for me with better. It will get better. God is in control. So let's end with hope. Let's end with the prophetic promise that better is coming. You may be broke. You may be grieving. You may be alone. You may be confused. You might be heartbroken and lonely. But you know what? Let this song prophesize your future. It's getting better. Well, guys, today has been deep. And like I told you here on Unbreakable, Unapologetic, and Unstoppable, I'm going to say the things that you cannot say. Things that won't come out your mouth, but you think and you feel. That's all right. I'll be your voice. I'm going to show up every week, and I'm going to keep saying the things that you're thinking, but they won't come out. The things that you're feeling, but you don't know how to voice. I'm going to do that every week right here on Unbreakable, Unapologetic, and Unstoppable. I'm your host, Bonita Payton. Come back and come journey with me every week, because I'm going to take it there. I'm going to say the things that you can't say, that you want to say, that's hurting you, and all you can do is cry. Crying's not bad. We gonna hurt, but you know what? We gonna rise. And I talk about that in my book, She Rises, the Bonita Payton story. You can grab it on all platforms right now. It's on 50 different platforms. You can Google it. You can go to Amazon. You can go to Barnes and Nobles. You can go to my website, bonitapayton.com. Grab a copy. We got more coming. And for you, be strong. Rise. We rise every day. Be strong. I'm out.